A graphic video was just released, and it shows the final moments of a man who died in police custody. Now, while the video is just being released now, 46-year-old Linwood Lambert died 2 years ago after officers tased him while he was handcuffed, and they tased him multiple times. Officers picked up Lambert in South Boston, Virginia on May 4th, 2013. Reports say he was delusional and the cops decided to take him to the hospital. But during the ride, Lambert kicked out a window in the police cruiser, tried to escape. He didn't make it very far as the officers were tasing him, as you can see, in front of the hospital they took him to for treatment. He repeatedly asked them to stop, saying, "Why are you all trying to kill me?" He ended up dying at that hospital. And while authorities claim he did die due to acute cocaine intoxication, the family's attorney says that's just not true. And I'm joined now by that attorney, Joe Messa, who has filed a civil lawsuit against the South Boston Police Department on behalf of the family. Joe, thank you for being here. I know this happened 2 years ago, but we're just seeing the video now. What was your reaction when you saw the video?
I was shocked. It's really a tragedy, and I was sick to my stomach when I watched it, the kind of conduct that led to this man's death. The repetitive tasering that was clearly unnecessary for a gentleman who didn't commit a crime, was never under arrest, was at all times in handcuffs and restrained, and never took any aggressive action towards the police or anyone else.
Right. What do we know about what Lambert had told police about his behavior, about the way that he was acting?
Well, we know that Mr. Lambert called the police himself. He called 911 looking for help from the motel room where he was staying because he apparently felt that he needed to go to the hospital. And he was acting erratically. Before that, he had stayed at this hotel because he was working for his employer in town. They were putting him up at this motel. And I talked to motel employees. They said he was a very nice guy. He was pleasant. He always spoke to everyone. He was personable. And this one evening, he was acting erratically and acting like he was paranoid. So he called the police himself looking for help. The hotel called. The police came and took him and put him in handcuffs, although they clearly said, "You're not under arrest, we're just taking you to the hospital to get you help."
Now, he's clearly outnumbered in this situation. I see 3 cops that are on the video there, and he's handcuffed. And they're saying, the police are saying that his erratic behavior is what required them to use force against him, tasing him multiple times over about a half-hour period. Now the police and their attorney, they're saying that the agents did nothing wrong. How do you see this and the way that it unfolded?
Well, thank God for video that we finally got after these 2 years. I think the video really tells the story here. We have a gentleman who's in the backseat of a police car. He's handcuffed. He's paranoid. If you listen to the tape, you can hear he's afraid someone's following him, coming to get him. They knew he was acting in an erratic fashion. He kicks out the rear window of the police car because he's afraid. 3 police officers, much larger than Mr. Lambert, open the door. They get him out. They could have held him otherwise. And what did he do? He ran towards the hospital doors where he needed help. So rather than get him into the hospital for help, they tase him. He goes to the ground. And then when he's on the ground, still in handcuffs, they repetitively tase him. We're talking about each taser shot is 50,000 volts of electricity. There was over 20 firings of these tasers. He's on the ground pleading for help, pleading for them not to kill him and asking why they're doing this to him. It's unconscionable. Then they put him in leg shackles, bring him back to the police cruiser, and tase him again while he's in the back of the police cruiser, clearly restrained, legs in irons and hands in handcuffs, and do nothing to take him into the hospital to get him the medical help that they believed he needed in the first place. That's why they were taking him to the hospital in the first place. Then the police officers, you hear them joking. They're joking about, oh, he's bleeding like a hog because his face had hit the ground because he was handcuffed and couldn't break his fall. Hospital workers observed this unfold. 3 nurses have given testimony or statements that said that they saw 3 officers tasing him at the same time. When one of the hospital officers asked the policeman, "Are you bringing him here for treatment?" they were told by the police officer, "Well, we were going to do that, but now he's gone to jail."
Joe, what strikes me about how all of this unfolded is that Lambert did call the police for help to go to the hospital, and that's where they were taking him, and it was very clear that he had not committed a crime and he was seeking help. When they took him to the hospital and they felt that, apparently, according to their attorney, that his erratic behavior required them to respond in the way they did, What strikes me the most is that they left the hospital. They took him to a detention center instead when he had asked for help to go specifically to the hospital. And at that detention center, that's when Mr. Lambert became unresponsive and then was pronounced dead at the hospital, the same hospital they were supposed to drop him off at before. They say that he died of cardiac arrest, acute cocaine intoxication. What do you say about those medical reports?
Well, first I'll say this video shows the definition of excessive force. To suggest someone acting erratically, who's restrained in handcuffs, no danger to anyone, and hadn't committed a crime deserves 20 taserings at 50,000 volts apiece is disingenuous and unconscionable. With respect to their statement that an acute cocaine overdose caused his death, the medical evidence will prove otherwise. The amount of cocaine in his system was minuscule. 0.01 was the amount of cocaine in his system. That's not enough to cause a sudden cardiac death or cause any significant illness whatsoever. On the other hand, hundreds of thousands of volts of electricity do cause a cardiac arrhythmia and sudden cardiac death. We're talking about a circumstance where this tasering is out of bounds and contrary to every standard that exists. It's contrary to the manufacturer's standard that manufactures the tasers and their warnings and cautions on the tasers. It's contrary to South Boston Police Department's own policies and procedures. It's contrary to the United States Justice Department's procedures with regard to tasing. There are no circumstances where this is appropriate, and they took this man's life.
Joe, 10 seconds left. Where is your civil suit standing right now?
We have a trial date coming up in May. We're finishing up discovery. In fact, next week we have the deposition scheduled of the state police investigator that conducted the investigation and the coroner's deposition coming up, and we expect that we'll be ready to go to trial in May.
Okay, Joe Messa, that would be 3 years after this actually happened. Attorney for the Lambert family, thank you so much for coming on. I appreciate your time.
Thank you. Have a good night.